Hello, everyone, and welcome to Discover Rising Tides, How the Outside Makes the Inside Better. My name is Jeanne Gallagher, and I am here with Denise Tegal. Hey, Denise.
Hey Jean, how you doing?
I'm doing really well. This is exciting. This is another one of our in-depth with Denise and Jean episodes. And usually what happens in one of Denise's wonderful topics, we get through with a short little 10-minute conversation and we say, I think we need to dive a little deeper. And it comes out to in depth, time. And so here we are. So, this is how the outside makes the inside better. But your topic today is we're going to be talking about the chaoticness of life on the outside and how to calm the
Mhm.
outside to make the inside better. So, how does let's talk about this because I think that this is really important because everybody has some piece of chaos in their life and it has to be affecting the insides even if we don't know it.
Oh, absolutely. So with most of my clients, my clients are midlife and beyond, right? And that's really where we'll focus on this is, kind of say 45 and over, right? Younger people can be listening to this and they will get it too, but I think once we hit this kind of 45, 50, we're kind of going, all right, something's got to give here. And either we work on this now, um, and calm our mind, body, spirit, so to speak,
Mhm,
or it's just going to get worse, more intense, and it's going to affect us and essentially, potentially shorten our lifestyle, or sorry,
mm,
our longevity. So the I see in our modern day society is overstimulation.
mhm.
Remember when, you had kids, you could take them out for like one outing a day and that was it, because otherwise they were
Yeah,
like bouncing off the walls and overstimulated.
right.
So our lives today, we're running at full speed all the time. The phone's ringing, endless to-do lists. Oh my God, we have all this social media stuff, constant hum of obligations.
Mhm,
Um, and I think this overstimulation is keeping well, I know, is keeping our nervous system on high, right? We're
mhm.
constantly in fight
Or
or
flight.
I always say it wrong. I don't know why.
Fight or
Um,
flight.
fight or flight. So what's happening is we're wired, our brain is going crazy, our cortisol levels are through the roof, but at the same time, we're exhausted.
Mhm, mhm. Yeah.
So how does
And
that show up?
well, for me, that shows up, and this is super hard for me to explain. So I can't even imagine that somebody's going to understand what I'm talking about. But sometimes it's my breath. And so my breath is only at the surface.
Mhm.
But it also feels like this is the part that's hard to explain, that I'm living on the surface,
Mm.
that I'm not living, things aren't coming from my core or my deepest parts. It's like I'm living on the surface and things are just not, it's this protection mode.
Kind of like you're going through the motions.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah. And that's how it
Yeah.
feels that's how it feels to me is that I'm controlling the reactiveness or I'm controlling the chaos so it doesn't filter down through. It's like this shield.
Yes. And we're trying to keep it all at bay, yet
Hmm.
even doing that is affecting us,
Hmm.
right? Like
Sure.
you say, you're just kind of, living through the, going through the motions.
Hmm.
And part of that is that obligation thing. We have things we need to do, but we want to make sure if we're doing things, like you'd say from your core, right? I always think of that as, uh, as your core beliefs, like who you are, like what you stand for,
Hmm.
right? When you do things from there, it's empowering.
Hmm.
And when we're not, it's kind of flat. Like we're just doing it to
Oh,
do it.
flat's a good word. Yeah, flat, exactly. There's not a lot of emotion one way or the other around it. It is flat. Yeah.
Right. And with all of this overstimulation, then this we're trying to protect ourselves. Um, we're not sleeping right,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
And we probably are not eating right because we're eating well because when we're constantly in this overstimulation mode, this is where I think where people lose control when it comes to emotional eating or busy eating. Like they're not really hungry, but they're just kind
Mm.
of in constant like perpetual motion, and eating somehow helps that, but it I was going to say feeds that quite literally,
Yeah, right.
right? So with overstimulation, I mean, think about it. When you wake up in the morning, for those of us, like I know you have a morning routine,
Hmm.
and interestingly, I was out of my routine this morning. Um, when you have a morning routine, your day starts much differently. It's not,
Mm.
you don't start your day with, oh, I gotta look at the phone. Oh, I gotta go check email, right? So what I call this is that I call this white space.
Hmm.
And we don't have any white space in our day. At least most people don't have that in their day. From the moment they get up, they're on social media, they're checking email, they're on the phone, they're doing meetings, they're doing whatever they need to do. Even throw in, their exercise. Sometimes exercise can be a great release. But if
Mm.
we're doing it because it's one of those other things we got to check the box,
Hmm.
exercise takes on a whole different meaning, right? It feels different
It
physically and
does. Yeah. It's I something I have to do. I have to do this versus something that I get to do. There's a difference. The activity can be exactly the same, and it doesn't happen just around exercise. It happens around everything.
mhm,
All the things that we do, it's mentally how we're positioning that within ourselves that can change the outlook of the activity or how
absolutely.
well the activity helps us in a positive or a negative manner.
And if
Hmm.
if we're talking exercise, if we're doing it just to do it, just to get it done, are we do we have good form?
Hmm.
Are we rushing through an exercise? Are we picking up a weight that's too heavy, but we're just powering through it?
Hmm.
And maybe that's how we're living our days. We're picking up things that are just too heavy, you know, like taking on different responsibilities,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah, that's a great analogy because the reflection of one activity in our daily routine can also reflect the quality or quantity of the other activities that are happening throughout our day.
Right. And there's the phrase, the way you do one thing is the way you do everything.
Hmm.
I I don't put 100% faith in that, but because there are circumstances, but I do believe in this case, you know, in many cases with people that I know, people that we all know, right? Um,
Hmm.
they are kind of taking this, it does apply, right? Because they're
Mm.
doing everything in this um, rigid, maybe constricted, overstimulated way. And so it affects their relationship. It affects their relationship with their kids, their spouse, maybe
Hmm.
people at work. It's affecting their health,
Oh.
mental, physical, emotional. So I guess I will say, I'll give that phrase some merit
Mm.
because of the way
So
we live.
if somebody says, "Gee, I don't know if I'm feeling this," or "I don't know if this really is something that's going on for me," how do we even recognize that? Or what are some triggers or common attributes that being overstimulated and being in this chaotic piece, what are some so that people can recognize that is, but then also there are people that are so conditioned to this, that is how they function.
Mm.
So there's really two pieces to that question. I think I just jumped ahead a bit, but eh, whatever.
Okay, so how do you know if you're actually overstimulated and you're feeling this, right? You're
Yeah.
wired, you're wired like but you're tired, you're physically exhausted, and you may be mentally exhausted too, but you just keep going because it's what you do.
Hmm.
So there's the exhaustion. There's that 3 o'clock in the afternoon slump where you're just like can't pick your head up off your desk, right? And all you want to do is take a nap. Like that's you're dreaming of taking a nap. Um, Headaches.
Mm.
If all of a sudden you're starting to notice you're getting more frequent headaches, that's your body telling you something, right? There's too much going on. When our and that this is a hormonal thing too. If we're always on high alert, our cortisol is elevated. The challenge with cortisol always being elevated is this affects or creates the cycle of not being able to sleep. So cortisol, essentially what cortisol is supposed to do, like in with our circadian rhythm, when we wake, cortisol is supposed to increase. Like it increases as we wake. It helps us to be awake and alert. And as the day goes on, it does decrease. Then
Hmm.
melatonin comes in, and that helps us sleep. The problem that we're having when we're overstimulated is cortisol is up all the time. And so melatonin's kind of getting pushed away. It's getting pushed out, right? There's too much cortisol. Doesn't allow for the melatonin. So that's part of the sleep challenge. And that fact
Mm.
that we kind of feel like we're wired and now we can't get to sleep. We're exhausted, but we can't sleep.
Hmm.
Uh, so anytime you notice something different in your body, and a lot of people will say to me, well, I don't know, if I feel anything different. If you think about it, just sit for 5 minutes, your body will be telling you something. Whether it's my shoulders are connected to my ears and I feel like this all the time because we're doing this or we're doing this
Hmm.
with
Hmm.
the phone. I don't know what we're doing with 2 hands with the phone, but anyway. Um, So your body will tell you when things, when you're overstimulated and you need to chill. So if it's headaches, if it's digestive issues, think about when you've been really under a lot of stress and a lot of stimulation, your stomach doesn't feel so good.
Hmm.
Again, this is flight or fright also. Um, when back in the day, when we were chased by whatever saber-toothed tiger, not really sure people were around when saber-toothed tigers were, but that's what we say. Um, Digestion really wasn't a factor. Like we needed to get the heck out of there, right?
Right.
So it was survival. And so we're always in this survival mode. So digestion all of a sudden isn't working so well, right? Maybe it's indigestion. Maybe you're not going to the bathroom right. And you've always been regular before. So these are signs, and sometimes they're not subtle. Sometimes they're banging us over the head, but we're still ignoring them.
Or what about this? When you say sitting for 5 minutes quietly, what came to me was, what if you're trying to sit for 5 minutes quietly and you honestly can't?
It does take
That that
it.
that is a really great sign that you might not be able to, but you really might need to.
Yes, absolutely. One of the things that I tell my clients how to manage that is to do it in like the amount of time it takes to take 3 deep breaths, crazy like deep breaths, but deep breaths like deeper than we would normally do. The time it takes to go through 3 cycles of breath is about 10 seconds.
Mhm.
If you can do that several times a day, slowly but surely, 10 seconds here, 10 seconds there. Maybe 10 seconds all of a sudden becomes 20 seconds. 20 seconds becomes 30 seconds.
Mhm.
So I agree. There are definitely people who cannot sit still and, their brain is going, their leg is tapping, kind of like they just need to get up and do something because of this overstimulation that we just have. I mean, coming at us
Mm.
left, right, and center, right? So that's a very good point for those people who cannot sit
Mhm.
quietly or
Yeah.
still.
Once One thing comes to mind too is the skill of multitasking,
Ooh,
right? Because that is just overstimulation on steroids because we are so proud of the fact that we're able to multitask and quote do it well. I am guilty of this, so I'm okay saying this, right? So we're great at doing multiple things at once because there's this jazz that happens. Oh yeah, one thing to the next and one thing to the next, but then all of a sudden you realize that it's not, you might be doing things sort of well, but you're not doing them as well as you could if you took one at a time. But that creates that internal chaos that we have to figure out how to recognize that it's happening, but also how to overcome and maybe better self-manage through the process.
right. Because when we're multitasking, we're not doing two things at once, right? I mean,
Mm-mm.
breathing and chewing gum, walking and chewing gum, that doesn't count. But when we're at our desk and we're multitasking, what we're actually doing is we're having our brain focus on one thing, and then
Hmm.
we switch and have our brain focus on something else, and then we switch back. And there actually is time, it takes some time for your mind to actually go from one thing to the next,
Hmm.
right? So it's you're actually what we've learned is there's been plenty of research that shows this. You're actually better off starting something, working on it for X amount of time. Maybe you
Hmm.
finish it if it's something that you can be finished in a good a shorter amount of time. Great, but give yourself time to maybe say half an hour. I'm going to work on this for half an hour, and then I'm going to go to this thing. The best way to do that too is between tasks.
Hmm.
Just take a walk for 5 minutes. Just step away, especially if you're at your desk. Is just to
Yep.
step
Clear
away.
clear ahead.
Right.
If
So
you're in an office building, run to the bathroom. Step
right.
outside, just step outside. Whatever you
Step
can
outside.
do to change your thought environment.
Hmm. Exactly. Because what we find is now, when you look at that first project that you started working on, you actually did a really good job on it because you
Hmm.
focused on it. Your mind wasn't on two other things at the same time, which, if it's distracting, it's just instead we're not multitasking, we're, distracted tasking. I just made
Hmm.
up a word.
Hmm.
Distracted tasking. Maybe that'll end up
So
in web series.
So what about the people that really think they thrive in that chaos? If I'm not really busy, I'm not happy.
That's a tough one because that's a mindset thing. But I would
Hmm.
ask
And a
that
learned
person,
habit.
yes, absolutely. I would
Hmm.
want to know, I would ask that person, how do they feel? Are they
Mm.
sleeping? Are they relaxed? Can they relax? Right? Because that person is always on high alert,
Hmm.
right? So this is definitely a mindset piece. I have to be constantly working, doing, moving, or I'm not successful. Says who?
Mm.
Internal. Internally, this is where I believe people need to step back and go, okay, what do I really believe? What am I really trying to accomplish? And this is where aligning your core values with the things that you're doing comes in. Because if you're just
Hmm.
doing a bunch of stuff just to do stuff, you're kind of losing the point, right?
Yeah.
And that just leads to burnout.
Hmm.
And that's not a place where any of us want to be. And to be quite honest, I can see um, in this day and age how people, I mean, people, even younger people, are burning out because they're doing things that are not in alignment with who they are or what they believe. They're just doing to do or to succeed. And it's oh, I have to post on social media 5 times a day. Seriously? I'm not going on social media 5 times a day, right? Jeanne, if you post 5 times a day, I promise you I'll see it once.
Yeah. That's it.
That's it. I go onto social media once a day. That's it.
Mm.
And it's taken practice.
Hmm.
We're all like, especially when Facebook started and Instagram and oh my God, all these videos and blah, blah, and everybody looks great and I want to look like that person and this person has a great course and I have to, so all of a sudden that's where that overstimulation, that constant want
Hmm.
I'm going
Hmm.
to quote my
And
husband
feeling
here.
unsatisfied for the want.
Absolutely. Let me
Hmm.
quote Mark here. You know, his mom used to say something like, you have to turn your wanter off, right? What do we, is it something that we actually want? Do we want, or is it something we need? It's
Hmm.
two different things, right? What do we
Hmm.
want? What do we need? When we focus more on what we actually need, those wants are fewer and fewer.
Mm. Okay, so once we've identified, okay, here are some areas where I might be experiencing chaos, overstimulation, whatever word you want to put on it. I'm over obligated in these different areas. What are some tools for people to start to retrain themselves to maybe curb some of this?
Okay, first two things I would say. When you get up in the morning, you do not look at your phone. You
Hmm.
do not turn on the TV for at least an hour.
Hmm.
You know, for a lot of people, that's like, oh my God. But in that hour, make a cup of coffee or a cup of tea, go sit outside, maybe take it for a walk, right? Maybe just go
Hmm.
walk around the neighborhood, right? Or in the woods, depending on where you live, right? I like to take my coffee in the morning and sit outside. And I will do this even when it gets cold, where I have my hat on and my boots, and I've got the fire table. Now, granted, if it's like 0, I'm not going to do it. Probably if it's okay, realistically, if it's less than 40, I'm probably not sitting out there. But what I will do is I'll take my cup and I'll walk outside for a couple of minutes, walk up and down the deck, get sun on my face,
Hmm.
sun in my eyes, right? No
Hmm.
sunglasses. This triggers your brain, and has a calming effect. No one loves to wake up in the morning to alarm, blaring, right? This is a nice way to start your day. And if we're starting our day this way, we can, kind of extend it a little bit longer and a little bit longer. Um,
Hmm.
and that's where I always say, if you go to bed at the same time, you'll wake up at the same time. With our, circadian rhythm is just, it just does that, right? If you go to bed at 10, you're awake at 6, right? So you don't look, I mean, why do you need to look at the phone or social media between 6 and 8 in the morning,
Hmm.
right? This is a time to reconnect with what you actually want to accomplish that day. And sometimes for me, sometimes what I want to accomplish that day isn't until midday. So I have time to go and sit and have my coffee, maybe go for a walk. I probably do that less often when I'm home, is to go for a walk, just because I like to sit on my deck, listen to the birds, and I
Hmm.
live out in the country, so it's pretty.
When
Um,
you said the word reconnect, you know what came to me?
what's that?
Recalibrate.
Ooh, yes,
Mm.
absolutely. I love that word. Um, hmm. Okay, I'm gonna put this on you.
Oh boy.
When that word, so recalibrate comes to you, what does that mean to you?
Ooh, it's that chance to, it's like a do-over.
Hmm.
Yesterday is over, right? And so the more today could be a reflection of yesterday, good or
Hmm.
bad, whatever that was, or and I could be pulling that energy over to today, or today I can start fresh and recalibrate
Uh-huh.
myself so that I can hopefully overcome some of this chaos. But
Okay.
that's what when you said reconnect, it felt like more of a do-over for me.
Yeah. Okay. So but based on what you just said, what came to my mind was the emotional toll that
Hmm.
chaos has. It doesn't just wear us out physically, but it wears us out
Hmm.
emotionally too, right? That's where sometimes we need that do-over, right? When the day
Hmm.
is always go, 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 do, 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 where is your joy? Where is your calm? Where is the living the life, right? Is this
Mm.
just
Yeah.
surviving or thriving,
Hmm.
right? And all of this, like if we don't recalibrate, what happens? We're cranky, we're irritable, right?
Hmm.
All of a sudden, our anxiety level is high. Um, and
Yeah. It is important. And going back to that, what we were talking about in the beginning, over the last few days, I've been feeling
Mhm.
pretty flat, like no ups, no
Mhm.
downs. It's just pretty
Right.
blah because
Yeah.
there's been a lot of things going on around me here. I had some travel. We've got some projects that are not completing like we thought they would. And I didn't realize how it was dragging me down until I went for a walk in the woods. And all of a sudden, some thoughts were coming, and it was clearer, and I felt lighter, emotionally lighter. Um, and it was hopeful.
Ooh.
That was that recalibration piece that happened yesterday for me.
Hmm. I love that. That be feeling hopeful.
Hmm.
When we're hopeful in our life, that actually extends our longevity. I actually did
Mm.
a podcast on my podcast. I guess it was this morning I did, and it talked about that. So that's interesting how you and I are always in alignment there. Um, I think what happens we don't when we stop connecting to ourselves and taking that time, we kind of forget. Oh gosh, there's a New Yorker in me. We forget what fuels us, what excites us. Because we're so busy in the got to keep up with this, whether it's keeping up with the
Hmm.
Joneses or keeping up with the work or keeping up with the projects, right? I agree. When there's work being done at your house, that to me, that's hugely chaotic. We had a
Hmm.
bunch of work done here over the summer, and so there was somebody here at my house like every day for almost 3 weeks. Um, and it was exhausting. But to be honest, the whole time, I actually physically did not feel well because there was so much happening. The painters were doing their thing, the sanders were doing another. The air conditioner guy, he showed up because that was doing something funky, right? And emotionally, it was overwhelming. So I think again, how do we address this? Like how do we
Hmm.
take steps to kind of calm the inside, right? Because all of this stuff is happening out here.
Hmm.
Sometimes it starts to, and then it starts to affect in here and in here. And sometimes if it's, a lot, it's in your belly too, right? You feel it in your
Hmm.
belly, right? Creating those intentional white spaces I said before. um Maybe it's just 15 minutes between this thing and that thing, like building these into your calendar. You know that I mean I love calendar management, and I sometimes on Mondays I build into my calendar nothing. Right? You are not No one is allowed to get on my calendar on Monday unless I allow them. Right? Built in white space. And those are days I can record, I can write, I can do the things that I enjoy
Hmm.
that help my business. But it's that white space. It's that taking the time to just step back.
But if you don't create the space for it, it's not going to happen.
Oh, absolutely. It's
Hmm.
like think about it. You want to get a massage, right? And you think, oh, I really need a massage. So you call today for a massage, and they can't get you in for 3 weeks, right?
Hmm.
So you finally get there, and at the end, the massage therapist says to you, would you like to schedule your next appointment? And you go, no, I'll just call, forgetting that it took 3 weeks to get the massage. So then you're trying to fit it into your calendar. And so then what ends up happening is, okay, so you have an appointment, this day on Wednesday until 12 o'clock. And they want, it's like, and they have a 12:15, they have a 12:15, or maybe they have a 12 o'clock available. How are you going to finish a meeting and be at the massage therapist at the same time?
Right.
Right? Building in that, well, in this case, it would be a drive time, but just
Hmm.
time to step back and be calm and, be able to breathe. Breathing is good. So emotionally, we're not constantly running from one thing to the next. multitasking, as we mentioned before.
Mhm.
Um, so with all of this, we know men and women this affects, by the way, but hormonally, it's affecting the cortisol. And we talked about this, right? Um, but I think it's really important to remember that, we mostly talk to women. However, men deal with this, as well.
Mhm.
And the cortisol challenge can affect men very differently. So I think it's really important for women to know what affects them. But this is affecting their husbands, their spouses, their partners, their parents, their kids.
Mhm. Mhm.
So really important to understand all of that. Um, the next piece, I think, with all of this is, we're disconnected from our feelings and our, say, purpose, or what matters to us. But we start to feel a disconnection with our body as well.
How so? What does that mean?
We actually stop listening. We stop feeling like with all of this stuff coming at us, we actually override the body signals, right? Think about this. I was talking to a client, I don't know, about a month ago. Maybe it was about a month ago. And she had said to me, actually, she was funny. She was really angry when I told her, when we walked through what was going on with her. And she said, she had a busy job and a busy career, and she was going up the ladder, and then she had kids, and her husband was working, but he was working part-time. And so that was a struggle there because she was making more money than he was. And she started to notice that she wasn't thinking clearly, and she was
Mhm.
getting these headaches. And of course, stress headache, tension headache, that's what she kept thinking. And so all she would do is she would take, two Tylenol 3 times a day.
Oh my word.
Yeah, which really is not good for your stomach. I mean, and I mean anytime you're taking that amount of medication regularly,
Mhm.
that should be a sign. She didn't notice that the headaches were a sign. She didn't notice that the irritation in her stomach was a sign. Probably a sign
Mm.
that she was taking too much Tylenol.
Probably.
But so they were there, she felt it, but it wasn't something that even occurred to her.
Mm.
So we just stopped listening to our body signals. Uh, And I think that creates this kind of mistrust in our
Mhm.
bodies, especially in midlife, because there are other things going on, right? Hormonally, we know the ups and downs and whatever is going on. Um, but this is where I think something like a body scan. Have you done these? It's a
I don't.
meditation.
Oh no. Go ahead. Tell us about it.
So it's a body scan meditation. And this was actually the first experience I ever had with meditation, other than just listening to an app. I was at a retreat, a women's retreat, a bunch of years ago. And this woman had us do a body scan. And essentially, you're sitting quietly, if you can, um, and you're literally thinking, how does what do I feel on my forehead and my nose and my face, and how does my neck feel? Is it tight? Oh, wait a minute, it's kind of tight there. How is my chest? Am I breathing? And you kind of keep going down your body. I mean, literally, your front of your body, back of your body. And this is when you start to notice things that have been there that you've been ignoring.
Mm.
So that pain in the hip, in the back of your hip, huh, that's what's that about? Oh, that's been kind of funny. Yeah, I kind of feel like I've been limping around a lot. So just doing this body scan, one, it's a meditation, so you're taking time to think and breathe and feel. And I think that's the biggest part. We need to feel our body. I mean,
Mhm.
not literally, you don't literally have to touch it, but literally have to think about how our body feels.
And
And I
and
think
then give space to process that or notice.
Mhm.
that something, oh, this does feel a little off. Or, but I don't know that you're always looking for the off thing. You also need to recognize, oh, this is feeling pretty good.
Mhm. Absolutely. Absolutely. Um, Especially as we start to understand this a little bit more, that
Hmm.
the stimulation is always going to be there, right? We have to decide to turn it off or tone it down, right? And so, yes, as you're starting to do that, wow, you know, my body feels limber today. Oh, I don't have a headache. I've had a headache for a week. Oh, that feels really good.
Hmm.
And so I think it's important that you mention that. Yes, it's not always what's wrong, but how about what's right?
Hmm.
And that's really the calming steps help us to notice what's wrong. Yes, because that's important, but equally so, notice what's positive, right?
Hmm.
Because we don't want everything in life to be negative,
Hmm.
right? All of these things we can turn from a negative to a positive. I mean, even just looking at it differently,
And
overstimulation, that, I mean, just using that word to, change that to appropriate stimulation.
and this is a great opportunity to take another moment after doing a body scan like this and just writing it down. What did you see and what did you observe? And
Mm-hmm.
then another day doing the same thing and see if there's some similarities, because what we remember might not be exactly what was
Right.
felt at that time, because our memory is, or maybe I'm speaking for myself, my memory is not as good as I think it is.
No,
So
that's actually very true.
yeah,
Not that
so
your
if you're
memory
if
is
you
better.
if you can journal that or take a moment to write down some of the things that you've noticed and the positives and the challenges that you see, so that then another time you go to do that and you can go back and reflect and see if there's some similarities. Oh, this is different. What's been going on for me lately? How did why what could have affected this happening, or look, this is still going on. Where am I experiencing some of these things? And I think that the example that you used that wasn't really noticed until somebody from the outside was looking in is that example of medicating for these headaches, but you don't notice that you're doing it because it's more habitual. And then you take a step back and go, oh, wow,
Mhm.
that really has been going on. There's something underlying there, and trying to determine what that really is.
Right. Well, interestingly, because and something that might be going on, it may not be due to overstimulation, but by journaling, you will see a trend.
Hmm.
So, true story, when I first moved to Minnesota, um, and well, not right when I moved here, because when I moved in January, everything was dead and frozen, right? Um, so in that first
Including
year,
you when you
seriously,
move there.
very frozen. Um, But as the spring came and through the rest of that year, what I noticed was by about 3 o'clock in the afternoon, I had a wicked headache. I mean, like pushing migraines status, where some days I just had to lay down. Like the
Hmm.
light bothered me, sound bothered me, which is bad because my husband plays the guitar. Right, I had two pillows over my head, and I wasn't working at the time because I had just moved here. So I had more time to really explore what was going on. And so
Hmm.
for me, understanding, like, you know what, I've been getting these headaches for a long time now. Yes, it was change of atmosphere, or is that the right word? Change of from Minnesota or to from New Jersey to Minnesota. Um, Environment, that was the word I was looking for.
Hmm.
Um, it turns out that I'm allergic to everything that grows here. So that first spring, there were
Oh,
all these
wow.
allergens. And then that first fall, there were all these new allergens. So I was getting these headaches because I had allergies. So being able to journal, and a journal is not, dear diary or dear journal, this is how I am today. No, it's really about putting down thoughts and feelings. sometimes if you want to put it in paragraph form, put it in paragraph form. If you just want to jot things down, I tend
Hmm.
to use my journal like if I have a thought, jot it down. Um, I journal what I eat. Um, I've been doing it for a long time. It's just for me now, it's a habit. Um, but I also, the reason I do that, one, because it's what I tell my clients. Practice what you
Implementing your
preach.
feedback yourself. Well done.
Exactly. But the times that I don't journal, I can tell that I've either put on a couple of pounds and not weight, not muscle pounds,
Hmm.
or that I have been eating in a way that's not congruent with the way I normally eat. And
Hmm.
now, truly, if I'm on vacation, if we're away, there are days where you're
Of
traveling,
course, that's normal. That's
right?
normal. But the
But if
everyday
they're
life piece,
right, but
but
one
you're able to see patterns.
exactly.
And it's that observation of patterns that
Mhm.
I think is important no matter what we're doing. It helps us take that bird's eye view of ourselves and
Mhm.
understand, oh, this is different. This is a little out of the norm. Maybe this could be tweaked a little bit. And how do we become better how do we serve ourselves better?
Yeah, better stewards of our own body
That was the word I was looking for.
and our own life. I mean, I think
Hmm.
um, it's so important for us to, you know, live a life that we love,
Hmm.
right? And if you don't feel good, if you're always stressed out, if you're always doing, and trying to keep up with the Joneses, that's not fun. It's not sustainable. At some time, you will break down.
Hmm.
And when we talk longevity, uh, that the overstress and the overstimulation eventually causes illness,
Hmm. Hmm.
and that'll shorten your longevity. So a couple of simple things, we've talked about a few, um, because we're so stimulated. And I know in the past, a couple of handful of years, minimalizing what you have in your home and in your office has been is really popular, and I get it. So every now and then I look around my desk. Today is one of those days. And there are things on my desk that shouldn't even be here. I mean, these are books that need to go back on my bookshelf. There's a couple here that, I'm ready to give them away. So decluttering our
Hmm.
space, our bedroom, our kitchen, our office, our car. I mean, how many people will say to me, "Oh, I live in my car," and you get in it and it's like, "Yeah,"
Of
and you
course you
eat in
do.
my car too. Yeah. Whoo. Right? So decluttering. The more you declutter your space, the more you're decluttering your mind.
Mm.
So, and that's calming. I mean, I get excited when I'm like cleaning out the closets and I'm like, "Ooh, this is going to go to consignment. This is going to go to, Goodwill." And then I put it in my car. And to be quite honest, it usually sits there for a few days. But another thing is setting boundaries,
Hmm.
setting boundaries with your time, um, your own personal time.
Hmm.
Um, and maybe that's the white space, that's the going for a walk. Maybe it's spending time with friends,
Hmm.
right? We're too busy to do that. No, you're not. You just haven't made it a priority and you haven't set those boundaries. But also boundaries where other people can't get into your protected white space.
Mm, I like it. Yeah, I like that a lot.
Um, and of course, like I said earlier, screens, we got to limit the screen time. I mean, for those
Hmm.
of us who work in front of a computer, that's hard,
Hmm.
right? But I have gotten to a point where I know I work between 10 in the morning until about 3, sometimes 4, but I step away for lunch
Hmm.
and I don't eat at my desk. I used to when I worked in corporate,
Hmm.
white space. Whatever's going on in, online, whatever needs to be done can wait a half an hour. It will still be there.
That's great. These are super great tools for people to help manage. Well, first of all, not manage, but help recognize the
Hmm.
chaos. And then once you recognize it, because you have to identify it before you can manage something. So
True.
once you identify it and then help you manage and create some better habits. And I love the fact that you're talking about boundaries
Hmm.
to create the space or the quietness that needs to happen throughout our day. Super important. And
And think
if
about this. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
no, I was just going to say, as people are listening to this, if they have some suggestions or things that are working for them, just add it to bring it, make a comment, bring it to the notes so that other people can share that also, because everybody's best practices are can benefit other people.
Oh gosh, absolutely. Some
Hmm.
of the things that I've learned through the years, I didn't invent. Somebody told me, I read it somewhere, and I've incorporated it. I've made it mine.
Hmm.
But I think the important piece here is there is a ripple effect to calm. Start
Yeah.
with one thing, right? Even if it's those um, three breaths
Hmm.
several times a day. Put it on your calendar. Make it something
A
that you
reminder on your phone. Yeah.
write a reminder on your phone. And you know what? The phone goes off and you just stop and breathe. All of these things add up and they just bring this beautiful ripple effect of calm. And it's the calm that we need, the calm that we're looking for in our lives in this day and age.
Denise, thank you. And for everybody, where can people find you?
Easiest place to find me is very simple. It's denisestegall.com. That is my website. And you can find me on social media at Healthy Living with Denise.
And your podcast.
Yes, my podcast. Thank you. My podcast is called Healthy Living Happy Midlife. And you can find that on my YouTube channel or on any of the podcast stations,
Great. Thank
specifically
you, Denise.
KFred Radio.
There we are, especially K-Fred Radio. So thank you very much, Denise. And if anybody has any topics that they'd like to have an in-depth with Denise and Jeanne, let us know and we'd be glad to hash that one out. So thanks everyone for listening and have a wonderful day.
Thank you so much for listening today. Today's show is sponsored by Seaside Solutions, my financial services company. As a business owner, it's easy to be pulled in many different directions, and often taking care of yourself plummets to the bottom of the list. For me, I find myself outside to reground. My time outdoors helps me manage my day more effectively and be more present for my clients. Through this, Discover Rising Tides was born. At Seaside Solutions, we truly believe that education is the foundation of financial wellness. Our primary focus is to provide guidance that is designed to help you achieve your long-term financial goals and visions. Working with a plan allows space for doing more things that you love, like being outside to make the inside better. If I can help you create or realign your plan, or if you would like to be added to my weekly newsletter, please let me know. This week's topic was 5 ways to set more achievable goals. Your referral means the big, beautiful world to me. And if I can help, please let me know. And thank you so much for listening, and see you next time.